welcome to Postscript. This is we're working on season 4, episode 5, The Calling. Welcome. I'm Tom Downing.
I'm Christina Zeiders, and we're talking about Miss Scarlet and the Duke. Not that there is a Duke. There's no Duke in this episode, which makes me really sad. But there's letters from him, but we know he still exists.
He's definitely making an impression on this episode. So we're going to get into it and just keep moving along. But we're going to be covering a lot of things. This is a spoiler alert. So just
spoiler alert. We're going to talk about the entire episode. And what happens
if you've been watching us before, you kind of know that we do that. But just throwing that out there. And if you have any comments or questions, let us know down below if you're watching us on YouTube. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's get started. So we open at Nash and Sons, and the mailman drops off this huge sack of mail.
Oh my gosh.
We got the post for you. Plop.
Yep. And Clarence and Eliza, they're both looking at letters in a bag, and then Nash arrives, and the letters are all applications.
He's worried they're bills.
Yeah.
They're applications. They're applications. They placed an advertisement in the paper to fill the vacant positions from all of the men who left.
Yeah, so they're trying to refill Nash and Sons, and then there's some debate about like Nash says that all these applications came because he's
his
back.
Reputation.
And then Eliza.
Eliza thinks it's because she is the female detective. They've all heard about the female detective, so they're curious about this.
Of course. And then Nash is like, whose name is above the door?
Which is a really mean, rude burn.
Yeah. And then Eliza says, yours and your son's. So there's return burn. Yeah.
Back and forth over this.
Yeah.
So we see Eliza and Patrick's differences at play here because they cannot agree on a single applicant. Every applicant, they're like, no. So Eliza wants somebody with a lot of experience, like traditional experience. And Patrick seems to be looking for people who might have some street smarts, but not necessarily book smarts, which Eliza just immediately goes no. She also turns one down because he was a criminal.
Yeah,
she works with criminals. Yeah, she's worked for plenty of criminals.
Clarence has a record.
Yes.
I mean, there are other people that's
Moses,
an asset. Yeah,
and Clementine, and she works with a lot of criminals. So I thought that was a little
bit odd.
Weird.
I agree. Yeah. So there's so many letters and no ones that they both agree on, right. And then Clarence is just caught in the middle.
He's just stressed out.
So
Clarence is just always just stressed out, but trying to play it cool.
So his stressed out leads us right into the title sequence. So after that title sequence goes through, we're at Eliza's place, and Ivy is writing.
She's writing.
Eliza walks in with some laundry that she's carrying, I guess. And Ivy was practicing her handwriting. Right. Or wait, no, maybe she was writing a letter to Barnabas.
Yep. And this is when Eliza's like, this isn't true. And she swipes the letter from Ivy's pocket.
Yeah.
And it turns out she's writing to William. And Eliza is not happy.
Yeah.
About that. And also, Ivy says she's writing to him because Eliza won't.
Eliza's not writing to him. So
3 letters. He sent 3 letters so far and has heard nothing from Eliza.
So Eliza is upset and angry despite what she says. She says she's not upset and she's not angry, but she is. And Ivy sees through that. So so then we cut to Nash and Sons, and Eliza is still clearly missing William.
She's remembering his departing words. Yeah. She opens her desk drawer and she pulls out the 3 letters that she has not responded to. And that's when Clarence walks in. Yeah,
and to her relief, because she needs a case. She needs a case to get her mind off. Yes, to get her mind off of William being gone. So Nash has a new client. So we cut to the Britannia Telephone Company.
Yes, this is the future.
Yeah. Welcome to the future, flying cars and such. No, we got telephones.
Right, there's telephones, and this is a newfangled invention. Yeah. Nash asked Eliza if she knows anything about the telephones, and she's like, no, not a lot, and then just becomes a Wikipedia article on telephones.
Yeah, she knows everything.
Yeah.
That's her superpower is research, and she has. So the telephone has been made more accessible, but there was a murder at the Britannia Telephone Company.
Yes.
And they meet with a Mr. Bracewell, who is one of the owners.
And he's also the police's prime suspect in this murder. So there were 2 men killed at the engineering workshop by a gas explosion.
Yep.
And I guess the only reason they really believe Bracewell is the suspect is because he was supposed to be at that meeting. he was not.
Yeah.
Because he was arguing with his co-founder. And that's one of the people
he was arguing with his co-founder in the morning.
Yes.
And then he wasn't at the meeting where that co-founder died.
Yes.
So the co-founder was a George Davidson. And then there was also the other person who died was Alfred Baker, a young inventor within the company.
Yeah. So we go in, we meet Bracewell, and he's going over his ambitions for the company. He's under suspicion for murder.
And he's also their client. So this causes a little bit of a conflict between them as well.
Well, he wants this solved because, one, he doesn't want to be suspected of murder.
No.
And also, the stock exchange, the stocks are down on this news. So his company's not doing great.
No.
Because everyone thinks that he might be the murderer.
And we learn that because Eliza's able to use the telephone that's in his office. And she's actually very excited about this because she's never used a telephone before. And so she gets to call the stock exchange and find out how much it is. And then Bracewell is like, it's down because
we need to solve this.
Yes.
And Bracewell, Eliza asks him all the questions that you're supposed to ask. Like, did you have any grievances with the other man who was killed? Because they already know about his fight with Davidson. And he gets really upset.
Oh, yeah.
And he says that he would never have murdered either man, especially Alfred Baker, who just invented a telephone. And basically, it would make the company rich.
Yeah. So why would he want him dead?
Yeah.
So outside of the Britannia Telephone Company, Nash chastises Eliza about interrogating Bracewell, and they challenge each other's judgment. Also,
she basically calls him starstruck.
Yeah. They need to visit the crime scene, and Eliza says finally something that we can agree on.
Because they kind of have a back and forth about the hiring again, and off to the crime scene. It's the only thing they can agree on right now.
They can't agree on candidates for hire. They can't agree on anything.
Whether Bracewell's a bad guy.
Yeah, no. So Nash is frustrated. So they wind up at the Britannia Engineering facility, which is the crime scene.
Right.
And Phelps is there because William's not.
Well, almost Inspector Phelps. He wants to make sure that Eliza knows that he's basically in for that promotion.
Yeah. They talk about, like, Eliza says, well, like, why hasn't it been rubber stamped yet if it's going to happen? He's kind of like,
gets angry.
Yeah. But Nash, on the other hand, is very buttery smooth, where Eliza's harsh, Nash is trying to, like, butter up Phelps with compliments, and Eliza's just harsh, and, like, she says that respect is earned, and Nash tries to get them inside, but, like, Phelps just shuts them down.
Oh, yeah, because Phelps just doesn't like Eliza to begin with. Like, he's never liked Eliza.
No.
So Nash isn't going to undo that. But yeah, Nash is like a smooth talker.
Yeah. Yeah. That's his method. And
that's his superpower.
His superpower is being buttery smooth with trying to get people with compliments and such. But Phelps also great acting. Great character.
Yeah, I genuinely don't like him, and I'm sure he's a great guy in real life.
Yeah, no, which is perfect for
But I mean, I like his character, but also I don't like him.
So Phelps says it says to the person who's guarding there, don't let them in, even if the queen herself asks
and says she'll hang you for treason. No, absolutely not. So back at Nash and Sons, Nash is like super annoyed that Eliza can't just play nice.
Yeah, he says she has to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, and he asks if she's sulking because her inspector left.
Yeah, so William. So he sees that she's not
herself. Yeah.
They kind of have like a little back and forth. She says I do not sulk. She says
I don't sulk.
And like he says good because my mother was a sulker and I won't tolerate it. And they both kind of laugh about this. It's a little weird.
I made a little note in my head because you do not compare a woman to your mother unless you're like thinking of her in a partnership sort of way. Like in my little brain, I'm just like, he would never compare her to his mother if he wasn't like thinking about being with her a lot.
That's very Freudian, but also kind of weird. I was kind of weirded out by that a little bit personally. I was like, okay, well, I mean, definitely there's some comparisons. They laugh about it, so they're kind of like Nash is going to set up and get some crime scene photos. So they start to actually have like a little bit of agreement on what they're going to do.
They start to make a plan.
Yeah. Eliza suggests they investigate Alfred Baker, who's the inventor who was killed, by interviewing his widow. And so that's where we go next.
That's where we meet Betty Baker.
And she's only been married for 6 months. And Nash asks if there are any grudges against Alfred, her husband. Betty says that the only one is...
She knows one immediately off the top of her head, which I guess should have also been our clue.
Yeah, Daniel Archer, who works at Britannia and was like the mentor for Alfred.
Yeah. Daniel was Daniel was jealous because the company wanted to go with Alfred's design for the telephone.
Yeah.
And that her husband was afraid that Archer was going to steal the invention and take credit for it. So he hid it. And Archer almost found it in his office. So he hid it again.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know where.
No. So then we go to meet Mr. Archer then. So we're at the Britannia Telephone Company Engineering, and Eliza and Nash are interviewing Archer, and they talk about the upright was what Baker's design was going to be.
The upright telephone, yeah.
And Archer scoffs. He's like, "Puh." And Eliza and Nash point out that what Archer had to gain with Baker and his designs being gone. And Archer, meanwhile, Nash is messing with some of the stuff
Nash just keeps picking up Archer's different desk. Telephone pieces and just dropping them from 6 inches up, just dropping them.
He's just fiddling with things, and Archer doesn't like that.
No, he dismisses them. They ask for an alibi, and he just gets so mad that Nash keeps touching his stuff. He goes, "Stop touching my things."
Yeah. And so then we leave there and we go back to Nash and Sons, and Nash says, well, we know he has a temper, and tries to give Eliza advice, which doesn't really go over well.
He says the best way to learn a suspect's temperament is to deliberately vex the suspect to test their temperament.
Which she knows.
She was basically doing that back at the boss's office, and he told her not to.
She does that naturally. She doesn't even have to think about it.
She just naturally vexes people.
So Eliza points out, because she does her research, that the Britannia Telephone Company telephones have 3 current issues: cost, sound quality, and a tendency to short circuit.
Which seems like a big problem.
Yeah, you don't want to get electrocuted or zapped by your phone. So Eliza still considers Bracewell a suspect. Again, their client.
But Nash tries to direct her back to
Archer.
Away from Bracewell. And mentions that Clarence did some digging on George Davidson, which is the co-founder. He has no family, no close relations, no financial issues, and no known grudges. And she says, except for the one held by his boss. And he's like, no, I think that we should move on to Archer. He should be our prime suspect. He has motive and no alibi, because he never shared his alibi.
And then Clarence comes in and interrupts, and he has crime photos that he got from a friend at the Met.
Yes.
And they look at them, and curiously, there are scorched, because supposedly it was the pipe.
Right, George Davidson's pipe was supposed to have ignited the flames.
But there's scorch marks on the opposite side from the bodies, so that points that there's another source of ignition. So that's kind of weird. It's probably not the pipe.
And Eliza notices that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Scotland Yard, where Phelps is yelling, and he's very busy.
He's just always yelling. He's just always angrily shouting at people.
He's not a happy guy. Not a happy guy usually. So the explosion has not been inspected yet.
Right. His fire experts are stuck on another case.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Nash and Eliza are there, and they offer to help with the case, because they want to know if there's any, they can get access to the crime scene.
They want the crime scene, and if they help solve the case, I mean, that's all the better, especially if it's not Bracewell.
Yeah. That's particularly what Nash wants, and so Patrick makes a deal with Phelps, basically.
Yeah, and Eliza's not happy about it.
No,
but Nash tells Phelps that they will solve the case for him. They will take no credit for it. They will just give him the evidence, and he can take it as his own. Credit. Yes, he gets all the credit.
And so as Phelps agrees to this,
and gives them
only 10 minutes at the crime scene.
10 minutes.
So Nash says to Eliza, "Good, aren't I? He got access. He proves his way as getting good at getting results. Maybe Eliza will take notes," which is no.
She has her own way of doing things.
So then we cut to the crime scene, which they now have access to, and Nash and Eliza are looking for a spark source. And they see that underneath the telephone, the insulation on the wires seems to have been...
Eliza notices that it was
removed.
Stripped.
Yeah, stripped there. The source of the spark wasn't Davidson's pipe. It was a phone call.
Yes.
Murder by phone.
She tests this by poking it with a wooden stick, and it just immediately sparks. Yeah.
So murder by phone.
Murder by telephone.
Yeah. So then we cut to Nash and Sons. They're at the back of the office. Eliza shows off her powers of research. Patrick has charm. Eliza has exhaustive research.
Yeah,
Those are their superpowers.
There are exactly 2,512 telephones in London, and now they have to figure out
which
telephone that came from.
Yeah. And while they're talking about this, Eliza and Nash share a glass of whiskey. And I was thinking, whenever she drinks whiskey, it's like she's missing William.
There's
like this connection.
Him. Yeah. That has been established.
Yeah. So they need the call log, and Nash suggests that he can be Inspector Bates, Scotland Yard, at your service, madam.
Yep. And she goes, ugh, isn't there anyone else? And so they make another plan. She's going to continue to research the telephone while Nash visits the exchange. And he kind of sits down. They have a little moment where he says, I much prefer it when you're not sulking. And this is when we find out she doesn't sulk, she broods.
No. And it shows that Nash cares. So there's maybe some development there relationship-wise. Although, this episode is more about the case, I would say. There's like little relationships.
There's tiny little things where Nash shows some affection by showing that he actually cares about her and what's actually happening in her life.
Yeah.
And it's mostly Nash kind of trying to get in with Eliza.
Yes.
I think like earn her trust and respect again.
There's definitely more movement on his side. Yeah. And so like he notices that she's sulking or brooding.
Yeah.
And asks if it was due to her inspector leaving again. He asks
in a much softer way than he did earlier in the episode.
But Eliza's dismissive and she just says Inspector Bates is waiting, basically saying like you need to go be Inspector Bates. Yeah. And so he leaves, but then we're ending on a shot of her just kind of being like pensive and just kind of thinking about it. Stuff. So
thinking about everything.
So then we cut to the telephone exchange where Nash, Inspector Bates
is there.
And he's going to talk to a Mr. Underwood who is like, he walks past all these women who are like busy, like changing.
The operators.
Yeah, the operators are changing, like, connecting people left and right. Mr. Underwood is like their manager, I guess.
Yeah, he has his little headphones on so he can listen in to the girls, which again, there's a clue.
That's a clue. So Nash asks to see the call log for the 21st of September, which is when the murder took place. Underwood asks to see.
Yeah. Well, at first he starts walking off to get the log, but then he goes, "Oh wait, these calls are confidential. You understand? I need to see your warrant."
Yeah, because he was hoping, Nash was hoping he could just pretend to be an inspector.
I feel like he should have just been like, "Oh, I left it back at the station. I'll be back later," and like get one from Phelps since Phelps
maybe
wants him to solve the case. But no, he just immediately gives it up.
He caves and just says, "Okay, I'm not an inspector. I'm a private investigator, but I'm willing to pay you. Here's a potential bribe," and he gets kicked out.
This is where they flip the switch, because when he says, "I'm a private detective," and the Mr. Underwood goes, "A what?
You're a what?"
He gets booted though.
Nash gets the treatment that Eliza usually gets, and then he gets kicked
out on the street. And he's lucky he's not being reported to the police.
Oh, yeah. Also threatened for that. So then we cut to Nash and Sons, and Eliza is carrying a book because she's good at research.
And she looks like Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yes, she does. Yeah. So the Clarence comes in with Alfred Baker's contract with Britannia, and Bracewell and Davidson were, in the contract, were to get 45% of the profits each.
Yes. And Alfred Baker was to get a paltry 10%.
Only 10%.
10% for all his work.
So, and then also that all profits go to the remaining members and cause of death. So that's also motive why Bracewell might be the suspect.
This is where I'm like, Bracewell looks very guilty right now. I think Eliza was right, because he would receive all of the profits.
And then Betty Baker, Alfred Baker's wife, comes in.
Yes, and this should have been our clue that she should be considered, but we did not think of this at the time.
So, yeah.
They just always show up. So we go back to Betty's place because Betty heard someone leaving her home when she returned back from visiting Alfred's mother. Mm-hmm. And the police haven't come, so Betty she visited Eliza because Eliza earns the trust of women very easily because she is a woman. They want to deal with her. And Eliza confirms she did the right thing, and she asks if anything's missing.
Yeah, and Betty doesn't think so, but then Eliza looks over and sees this. There's a 3-volume set, and the middle volume is missing.
Yeah, volume
2. So, Inventions That Changed the World, and they were his favorite. They were Alfred's favorite books.
So, this is where we're going to take a break.
Yep.
And when we get back, we're going to be outside the telephone exchange because Nash needs a different way in.
Yeah, because he got booted out. After you subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at youtube.com/@WITFmosaic, like and comment on the videos to share your thoughts, or email us at ps@witf.org. You can also like, share, and comment on Postscript Shorts on Facebook @WITF.org or Instagram @WITFORG. We love that you're with us week after week to track down the drama of Miss Scarlet and the Duke. Help keep us going with a gift of support. Go to WITF.org/mosaic to make a gift of $5 or $10 or whatever fits your budget. Your gift helps WITF bring you more of what you love.
Welcome back. We are going to meet Nash outside of the telephone exchange because he's been booted out. He needs a different way in, and he's found a connection, although he's not the friendliest connection that there is.
No. I should say it's night. It's 8 p.m., and he's looking at his pocket watch, and Eliza shows up and notes that Inspector Bates was thwarted. Nash acknowledges that it is now on Plan B, and Nash found who?
I can't remember the name, but he found somebody that he put away for fraud.
Yeah, it's Elmer Goodhart.
Okay,
he's the night shift manager.
There's nothing good about him.
No. And Eliza tells Nash about the missing book and that she has a theory.
And I love his line. He goes, "Oh, good. I like it when you say that. It makes me feel warm inside."
Warm inside. I like it when you have theories. This is good. Then the theory is that the book that was missing contained the plans for Alfred Baker's new telephone design, the ones that Daniel Archer was after. And so then Elmer Goodhart shows up at the telephone exchange, but then a weird thing happens. They start
walking over, and then they have to duck back because Mr. Underwood walks out.
Yeah,
and he's getting in a carriage that's his personal carriage, and he's just the manager.
Yeah, it was very.
It's not enough money.
No, there's something odd there. He's getting some money from somewhere, and so that's
math
also
isn't
a clue.
Mathing
no,
again.
math is not mathing. So they enter the telephone exchange, and Elmer Goodhart, being the good person that he is.
Well, the bribed person that he is.
he gives them the call log for September 21st, and the call log was made. The call that was made that killed the two men.
Yes,
was made surprise from
Bracewell's office.
Yeah, the Britannia Telephone Company's the main office where Bracewell has his own phone, the same phone that Eliza was so excited to use to make a call to the stock exchange is the murder weapon. Murder weapon by phone. So Nash is not happy.
No, he kind of has this face that goes, crap.
Yeah, because their client,
Eliza might be right.
Their client's the suspect.
Yeah,
so they go to a bar afterwards, and Nash doesn't want to talk with Bracewell about this new evidence that definitely implicates Bracewell. So
because he's a well-paying client, and if they approach him and say, "We think you might be the murderer," he's going to fire them, and they won't get their fee.
Yeah. No, that's so this is the point where I want to say this points out the main difference between Nash and Eliza, and is also the reason why I think that they will never be together is because at least as long as Nash continues to put money over the truth, and so as long as that's at odds between the two characters.
This is the biggest hoop.
Yeah.
That they have to get through.
Well,
if he's going to be a serious love interest for Eliza.
Nash has to get through, I think. I think that he has to soften a bit on that.
He has to have some integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. So I'll save my commentary for Nash for the very end because I have some thoughts, and I don't know if I'm like Eliza or not, but I respect your confidence in this because he later orders her to say nothing to Bracewell, which we all know if you order Eliza hates it, and she's gonna do it anyway. She's gonna do the things she wanted to do.
Yeah. So we know she hates it because immediately after that we're at Eliza's house, and Eliza's venting to Ivy about Nash, and Ivy,
she calls him pig-headed and stubborn. Maybe I can't remember. And she's like, "Before you say anything, I'm neither of those things."
I was like, I wasn't saying anything, but she was thinking it.
Yeah.
And so Ivy kind of changes the subject and says that William wrote her again, and William wants to know if you're upset with him.
Yep.
Ivy knows that Eliza's angry with William.
Yes, Ivy's known Eliza since a long time ago.
Yeah,
so she can read the body language, and obviously, if somebody just a childhood friend just up and leaves you with like a declaration of love, and by the way, I'll see you in a year.
Yeah.
That's normal. You would be mad.
So Ivy tries to tell a story about Eliza when she was little, and Eliza just shuts her down. And Ivy's like, "You have no idea what story was going to be." And Eliza's like, "It was going to be about the dog, wasn't it?" And Ivy's like, Fine.
It was going to be about the dog.
Ivy's frustrated, and Eliza can sort it out herself. And Eliza admits to being angry with William. Mm-hmm. And Ivy points out that Eliza doesn't know what she wants.
Yes, and that is why William left, to give both of them time.
That's the real reason.
To figure out what they want.
So Eliza takes affront by Ivy's very clear, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And so Eliza leaves.
Yeah, she gets mad because she's getting this at work too. Like, Nash is picking out everything that he thinks she's doing wrong. Now Ivy's doing the same thing, and they both seem to think that Eliza can't make a decision for herself.
Which is true.
And so she just leaves. She storms out.
Yeah, and
they're
so
having a little fight. It's okay. It's going to be okay.
It's okay. And since Nash ordered her not to do this, she definitely goes right to Bracewell's office. And Eliza tells Bracewell everything. And
she confronts him with the evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, all the evidence makes him look really bad.
To you, Mr. Bracewell. So Bracewell's not happy about being accused, reveals that he couldn't have made the call because he wasn't there, like he said. He was in Ealing, involved with a secret negotiation with the United Telephone Company to buy them out.
Right. To be fair, he should have just said that from the start because that would have really helped them out.
That would have taken him out. They would have
they would have eliminated him entirely right off the bat.
And so at this point, I have in my notes, it's Mr. Underwood, the operator at the telephone, because he listens in. We know he listens in. And I was like, it's going to be him. So Bracewell also rightly points out that he can't profit from a telephone that no longer exists.
Right.
So Eliza shares that Baker made copies of the plans.
Yeah, she said, of course you knew that.
And Bracewell says, I did not know that. And now I want you to get me the plans immediately, or else I will contract Patrick Nash and let him know that
they're fired.
Bracewell's going to fire. He's going to fire the agency.
Yeah.
So we cut back to Nash and Sons,
and a little bit of time has gone by. I rewound. Last night I watched again. She's wearing the same outfit, so I think it's the same day, but she did not immediately go get plans.
No.
Some time passed.
No. Some time passed. So Nash asks Eliza where she's been, but he probably already knows. And she says she's been in Ealing, and Nash shares that Bracewell did indeed.
He fired them via telegram.
Yeah. Nash asks Eliza why she was in Ealing, and Eliza was checking Bracewell's alibi.
And it all stands up.
So he wasn't there. So someone else made the phone call.
Yep, and Nash goes to sweet talk Bracewell at this point. Yeah. He wants to get that money.
And as he's on his way out, he almost bumps into Clarence, who comes in. Nash leaves. Clarence comes in stating that Archer has been making cash withdrawals from his bank for the last 6 months. Yep. So in my mind, I'm like, it's Archer and Underwood. They're together. This seems so clear. Like, I actually am going to get this one. I was really excited.
You're like, I'm going to solve this case before they do.
I'm like, it's them. That's good. So, which should have been my first clue that I had it wrong, because I've never been very good at this. So, I think I've only solved one. I'm really bad at this.
That's a better track record than I have, so it's fine.
So, okay, anyway.
So, we find out that Archer, well, first, Eliza's kind of like, okay. But then we find out Archer just made a large withdrawal just an hour ago. And so she says, time to check that out.
And I'm thinking payment for the plans, which I'm thinking that's for the plans, but it's not, because it's something. No,
it's
off.
Something else, but ultimately it was for the plans.
Sort of.
Kind of.
Yeah. So outside the Britannia Telephone Company, Eliza follows Archer, and he walks to meet with
Mr. Underwood.
Yep.
They're both looking real guilty right now. They exchange envelopes.
Yep.
Money for something.
Money for something. I was thinking plans, but it's not the plans. I find out.
Because we find out she goes immediately to Archer's office. She beats him there.
Yeah. So Archer returns and is surprised to find Eliza sitting in his office, and
at his desk.
Yeah,
at his desk. And she just makes herself cozy.
Yeah, and she's holding the stolen book from Baker's home, Inventions That Changed the World, Volume 2, with Baker's designs. This is when I found out it wasn't in exchange for the plans. He already had the plans. He was getting something else. So Eliza says, you want to make Alfred Baker's design and pass it off as your own. And
you needed him out of the way to do so. Yeah. So there's a motive.
And Archer's like, well, they should be my plans partly anyway, since I was his mentor. He learned everything from me. So he's trying to justify it.
It makes him not look great.
So Eliza asks to see the contents of the envelope Archer paid Underwood for. And Archer just gives her the envelope.
Well, he hesitates for a moment. But then he does give it to her.
Yeah, and Eliza opens it, and it's written in code, a Pitman shorthand. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking, well, maybe that's why he gave it so readily, because he's like, hey, here you go, you can have it, but you can't read it anyway. But then
I think that was part of it, because he looks visibly distraught after she says, "Oh, I've studied this. My father made me study this."
She just happens to recognizes that it is Pitman's shorthand, and Eliza knows it was him. Archer points out that Eliza has no proof that it was him. So Eliza's like, I know that you're the murderer.
Right. All she has is a transcript of the calls between Alfred Baker and Davidson, which doesn't necessarily say he murdered them.
Nothing's going
feels
to hold
like
up in
connection.
court.
Yeah.
So she knows. She's like, it's Archer.
It's Archer. Archer's the
and
murderer.
Underwood's involved. And so they're back at Nash and Sons, and Eliza's pacing back and forth, and Nash returns, having made amends with Bracewell. But he doesn't share what he said when he described Eliza to Bracewell.
He jokes that she probably doesn't want to know.
Yeah,
so it sounds like it's something terrible.
Yeah. But Eliza does admit that to Nash, you were right. And Nash says, about what? And Eliza says, Daniel Archer. Now we just have to prove that he's the murderer.
He's the murderer. Yep. So they go back to the telephone exchange. And they confront Underwood because we know Underwood is involved in this because he's exchanging transcripts and he's being paid for them. So.
And Underwood says to Nash, "Oh, and I see you've brought your wife."
Yeah.
Eliza's like, "I'm not his wife."
This time they're not married for this ruse.
Yeah. So Nash and Eliza are there. They're looking over the transcripts of the private telephone calls, and Underwood claims ignorance. Eliza shows that Underwood's handwriting matches the handwriting on the day of the murder in the logbook.
Right, and that all of the logs are in his handwriting, which doesn't match the rest of the logbook.
For that day. All the logs for that day are in his handwriting.
Sorry.
And so this is when Underwood shares something that changes this whole case.
Changes everything.
He was getting blackmailed. He has a letter of blackmail.
He just pulls it out. He just keeps it in his desk drawer for some reason, but he pulls it out.
In case of emergency, break glass, here's a blackmail letter. So
he was blackmailed to lie about where the call actually came from. So the logbook says it came from Bracewell's office, but it actually did not come from Bracewell's office. This is another diversion. It actually came from a public phone in Farrington.
Yeah.
And so now they're on a different trail. Whoever the blackmailer is, it must be the murderer.
Yeah. And so outside of that, when they leave, Eliza wants to check the handwriting of the blackmail letter to the other logs to try to figure out
who wrote it, because they think it's somebody who worked for the exchange. Yeah.
So Nash is going to go to Farrington to get the records. And I was like, is this a misdirection? Because we only have Underwood's word that there was a phone call in Farrington. So maybe I was thinking it might have been a red herring, and it wasn't.
Right, and he's just trying to throw him off by some time. Yeah.
So Nash shares what he said to Bracewell. It wasn't disparaging comments that he said.
No, it was really nice things.
Yes, and he actually says that she was...
Do you want me to? I have the exact quote down. A talented detective with the utmost integrity. Yeah. So that's how he sweet-talked Bracewell, was to say, Eliza's really good at her job and she has a lot of integrity, and will you please take us back and pay us for this case, because we know it's not you. Which speaks well about Nash, and also kind of speaks well about Bracewell to actually take it back on with those. So we go to Farrington, the telegraph office. They don't keep records. The person there who's working there says that not many people use the phone. Yeah, not a lot of people use the phone. They don't understand how it works, and so they're not really interested in it. Which makes it easier to identify the person who was there. Who actually did use the phone and that one time this week. And before we find out who that is, we cut away, so we don't know. We don't know. So we're at the telephone exchange, and Eliza's comparing handwriting, and she finds a match. She's like, got you. And so at the telephone exchange, Eliza says to Underwood, points to the BL, and asks who the initials belong to. We find out that that person was Elizabeth Landing, who left 6 months ago. Yeah, because she got married to somebody who worked at Britannia. Yeah. Oh, no. And she was the one who wrote the blackmail letter. So her fiance worked there at Britannia, like I said, and we find out. So Eliza asks why would she sign her initials B and not E, and that's when Patrick shows up and goes, because she called herself Betty. Because he found that out when he was in Farrington. No. It was the wife. It was Betty all along. So... and I said, it's the inventor's wife. It's an inside job. So then we cut to Betty Baker's house. Yeah, and this is it's so heartbreaking because cold-hearted killer. Yeah. This plan was to murder people. I did not see this coming at all. But she wanted Davidson and Bracewell dead, but Alfred was an accident. Because I forgot that Bracewell was supposed to be at the meeting. Bracewell was supposed to be at the meeting. And Alfred wasn't supposed to be at the meeting. No. So that's why he wasn't supposed to be there. She had taken Alfred's keys, stripped the wires, punctured the gas line, and then made the call. So she was going to just take out Bracewell. She was going to take out Davidson. And then because Alfred is the only remaining person on this contract, he would get all the profits.
100% of the profits, which she thought that was due to him because of all his hard work.
Right.
And like, but still,
I think if they had
willing to kill two.
If they had split it more evenly, if it hadn't been 45-45,
this might not
10,
even have been a thing.
She wouldn't have even thought of it. But she wanted Alfred to have what he deserved. And unfortunately, he got murdered instead.
Yeah, and she says her life is over. She killed her husband, which is heartbreaking, but she did try to murder two people. She
did murder two people.
Yeah.
It was just one of them was unintentionally her husband instead of somebody else. So that's not great for her, but she's kind of resigned to her fate. Like, I don't think she's ready to just.
So the case is solved, but then we have to things have to fall where they may. So they're back at Scotland Yard, and Eliza turns to Nash, and she says, "I don't think I can do this."
She has to hand over all the information to Phelps and let him.
Nash
take credit for it.
Nash is like, "We gave Phelps our word," and Eliza's reluctant. Giving Phelps credit would seal his promotion. He could take William's place forever.
Yes, like my question was, what happens when William returns if his job isn't there for him at Scotland Yard?
Maybe that'll work out, though, because maybe he'll become a private investigator.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that might work. Phelps can get the inspector job.
I don't know what they're doing.
So Nash points out that Eliza will have to deal with Phelps anyway.
Yeah, she's going to have to learn how to just do it.
She has to give him the win. And so Nash hands the evidence over to Eliza. Eliza gets out of the carriage, walks over to Phelps, and gives him the evidence. And Phelps says,
just to rub it in.
Just remind me, who solved this case? And Eliza says, you did, Detective Phelps.
Yep.
And then he's like, and did I get any help at all? And Eliza says, no, Detective Phelps. And Phelps winks. And he says,
it is a really cringy wink.
It's a cringy wink.
When I watched again, I was just like,
and he says, that's the right answer. And
she looks really disgusted with herself.
As she should.
She looks back at Patrick. We see Patrick. He's just like basically going, yay, thumbs up.
Yeah,
you did it.
Good job. And so back at Nash and Sons, Eliza walks by this long line
of men out the
outside.
door.
So these are all candidates. And we find out that because Eliza basically gave a little bit in regards to Phelps, Nash gave a little bit and invited all the applicants that Eliza wanted.
Yep, a show of faith. And he also mentions that she's going to be the one working with them, so she should be the one interviewing them. Yep. And he leaves. Before he leaves, yes. There's a little exchange. There's
also he also points out there's a new telephone on the wall. Eliza says to keep checks on me while you're in Paris, and Nash is offended.
Yeah, he's like, no, to be on the forefront of innovation.
Oh, of course, because he is on the forefront of innovation.
He's so innovative.
And then Eliza points out that telephones can't reach overseas currently.
Yeah, the technology isn't
there.
Yeah.
And of course, Nash knew that. Of course, she lays it on in sarcasm.
Of course, I know.
Eliza laughs. And then Nash leaves. So back at Eliza's house at nighttime, Ivy's cutting cauliflower, and Eliza helps skin some potatoes. And you pointed out
she only helps with chores if she's feeling guilty. Yes. That's the only time she's ever in the kitchen actually helping with anything is when she feels bad about it.
So Eliza and Ivy ask if they're still angry with each other, and they're not. They hug.
No, they hug it out. It's really nice. And Eliza admits that she is upset and she's missing William. Yeah. Ivy suggests maybe it would help if you actually just replied to William. You might feel better. And it was cute because Eliza says, you're right. You're always right. And she's like, tell that to Barnabas. I've been telling him. It's so cute.
And Eliza hates cauliflower. And Ivy says, you'll eat what I cook for you, young lady.
Yeah, that's one of their standard lines.
And then Ivy leaves.
First, she places paper and a pen on the
table.
Yeah.
Just here you go.
Yeah, the exact same table that William wrote his letter from.
And that's...
It just dawned on me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Eliza's remembering when she first met William back in the Origins episode. It's a great episode.
When she walks in, her breath is just taken away by this dirty boy.
Yes. And so Eliza starts to write back to William.
Yes, and she says she's glad things are going well for him and that it's been an interesting week here, but a good one on balance. Yeah. And that's how the episode ends. Really, really cute.
Yeah.
So
A little bit of growth on her part. Not much character development between her and Nash, in my opinion. But you have something to say.
So I'm trying to figure out why I like Nash. Because nobody else seems to like Nash as like a potential love interest for Eliza. And I think it's because he's kind of a little project.
Oh.
He is. I mean, he's charming. He's good looking. But he's also a little bit of a project for her. And I personally always liked projects. So, like, my thought is
Eliza can fix him.
He's just good enough that you can see potential in him.
Okay,
and so that's where I think I like him. Because I see potential in him.
Okay.
And so I think that with Eliza's guidance, he might end up having some integrity, but also like he's shown that he really respects her.
Yes.
And that ultimately is what she wants, is somebody who respects her and lets her does what she wants to do. And he ultimately does that. But yeah, he feels a little bit like a project. And I think that's why I like Patrick Nash, because he's just bad enough. He's not a bad boy. He's just bad enough.
Counterpoint. William is even more of a project.
He's
already professed. He's already professed his love. So
right, and he's also established and like on the right side of society, though.
Good point. Okay.
Where Nash is kind of like he's had to work to build up Nash and Sons. Like he came to England.
True.
And he had some prejudice against him because he's Irish. We established that earlier.
Yes.
And like the reason he's like, no, we got to take this money is he's trying to save Nash and Sons.
Yeah, the London
So
office.
I think part of his lack of integrity is that he just does not want to see his business fail.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like all of those things are workable. But yeah, he's kind of more... He's more closely aligned with Eliza's, like, trying to make it in a world that doesn't want to see him make it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true, yeah.
I mean, not to the point that she experiences it with, like, you're a what? Every time somebody meets her as a female private detective. But
they do have a lot in common.
They are very similar.
So I don't know. I don't know if I feel exactly like that, but I agree with your point.
I'm just stating my case for Patrick Nash.
He is a bit of a project.
I'm still Team William.
I agree with you there. So at this point, if you're still with us, thankfully, definitely let us know what you think about this down below if you're watching us on YouTube.
I would love to hear people's thoughts on Nash. I expect that I have an unpopular opinion here.
Well, there's always some options. We haven't seen much of Fitzroy in this episode.
No,
or anything
Fitzroy wasn't in here.
No,
Phelps. He probably doesn't like working with Phelps.
Probably
they work together now, but.
I haven't watched ahead, so I don't know what happens in the next episode. There was a little bit of a preview at the end of the episode.
The next episode, Nash did something.
Oh, that's right.
He's being suspected. He's a murder suspect now. And so, she just put all of her eggs in the Nash and Sons basket, and now she has to prove that he's not a murderer, and it doesn't look great for him.
No.
And producer Aimee mentioned that she watched it, and she doesn't know what they're doing, so now I'm really stressed out about watching the next episode.
The show's going to be called Miss Scarlet and Patrick Nash is what it's going to be, so, yeah.
Miss Scarlet, just Miss Scarlet, and no sons, no daughters, no Duke.
No Nash and Sons, yeah.
It's just Miss Scarlet.
Miss Scarlet, as it probably should have been, but it's...
Yeah. There's got to be a love story. It has to be a love story.
So I guess we're going to have to see you next week. So stick with us then for then, and we can check it out, see what happens.
Yep. See you later. Thanks for sticking around for the credits. Postscript is produced by Aimee Bealer and Jon Ferreras for WITF. You'll find it on your favorite podcast app and at youtube.com/@WITF Mosaic. Follow WITF on Facebook at WITF.org or Instagram at WITF.org to see episode shorts, and be sure to leave a comment or send us an email at ps@WITF.org. You can support Postscript by making a gift at WITF.org/Mosaic.